Greetings, YouTube. Alright, anyway, in this YouTube video episode, I'm going to review Pink Floyd's second album, A Saucerful of Secrets. Recently I just did one about their first album, the Piper at the Gates of Dawn. So might as well continue on with the other 14 albums, starting with, again, number 2 now. Obviously I'm going to do the albums in order, especially since some of them don't know what the first 7 albums of Pink Floyd are. But anyway, 1968 is when Pink Floyd's second studio album came out, called A Saucerful of Secrets. It was the first one to include guitarist David Gilmore, and it was the second and final one to include the original guitarist and the original lead songwriter and lead singer, Syd Barrett. With the review of the last album, a lot of the reason why I didn't really give it that high of a mark was because, again, like how I said, it was a little more, it seemed like it was somewhat all over the place, and that was because of the album's head writer, Syd Barrett. And obviously the band kind of caught up with that, and they decided to kindly dismiss him from the band. And in doing so, they found David Gilmore, and obviously you know the rest of that story. But with this album, I gotta say, when I listen to it compared to their first album, I'll just go ahead and say that A Saucerful of Secrets is probably my favorite Pink Floyd album out of their first 4 albums. We're talking about Piper at the Gates of Dawn, Saucerful of Secrets, More, which was their soundtrack album, and their half live, half studio album, Umaga, if I'm pronouncing that right. But I would say Saucerful of Secrets is easily my favorite out of those 4. I could kind of understand why Nick Mason, the drummer, said that that was his favorite album of all of Pink Floyd. Again, in contrast to the Piper at the Gates of Dawn, this one, you know, you don't really notice it too heavily that it's from the 60s as much as you do Piper. And not only that, the the instruments are there's a wide variety of instruments, and they're not all over the place. They actually fit very coherently and very well. And the lyrics, even though it still takes a while to actually get to what the lyrics are, what the lyrics in each song is doing. And that's probably because Syd Barrett had somewhat of a hand on the writing still. It's just that, getting tongue-tied here. I don't know, it's just, it seems like the lyrics are not as scattered and all over the place like they were back in Piper, where you could easily, you could almost tell just instantly the guy that was writing and singing the album wasn't really in the most sober state of mind. And in this one, in contrast to that, you do see a little more sober state of mind, and again, more of a collective actual band. Again, it doesn't sound like the traditional 60s. It does have that 60s sound to it, but it sounds like it's basically Pink Floyd adjusting to their own sound, or at least their own, like their earlier days of them finally adjusting to their sound. It was a great, so this kind of makes it the only album where it's a 5-piece band as well, and the only song that they perform as a 5-piece band, which is Set the Controls to the Heart of the Sun. And it actually surprisingly doesn't sound like there is 5 members in the band or 4 members in the band. It sounds like one big band. It doesn't sound like there's an additional person in there, and it doesn't make it to where any other Pink Floyd song out there sounds like any 4 or any 3 members of the band. Great song. I loved how the title track was a 12-minute long instrumental. It kind of introduced that vibe a little bit, even though Piper kind of did it as well. This one really kind of seemed more, again, with Pink Floyd sound, especially since this is Syd Barrett's last album, and anybody that knows Wish You Were Here and Shine On You Crazy Diamond, which is similar in their long instrumental breaks. It just kind of seems like it almost goes full circle 7 years later. But I would say this is easily my, out of the first 4 Pink Floyd albums that came out in the 60s, this one is definitely my favorite one. They're 7 tracks long. It's probably just around a half hour, if not, it's probably just around half an hour long. And anybody that just wants to hear good Pink Floyd, and if you've already heard their first album and then you want to hear their second, I would highly recommend it. This one, I would give a whole lot higher of a rating to. I would give this one a 9 out of 10, so a 90% as opposed to Piper, where I gave it a 6 out of 10 or 60%. Even since the first listen with a good number of Pink Floyd albums, the first listen, it was just such a breeze and such easy to get through. It didn't feel like I was overcomplicating myself and thinking about the words or thinking about what the words were trying to say, or just trying to get all the instruments all at once. This one, again, all the instruments were there. The lyrics were there. You had various songwriters, which were members of the band, working on each song, or at least a good portion of each song. And again, it all sounds very unison. Which is, again, weird, seeing as how it's a band sounding unison, whereas it was a solo singer and songwriter that didn't sound unison in the previous album. But I would recommend both albums, and actually, if I had both albums, or a nice pair, which was re-released in the early 70s, if I was around for 1967 and I bought the Pink Floyd Piper at the Gates of Dawn album, I'd buy it, and I'd probably buy it I probably wouldn't listen to it that much just because it sounds too much like the other things from the 60s. But knowing me and knowing I'd probably delve into that sort of state of mind every here and there, I don't know, still part of me can see me liking it, but I probably wouldn't like it as heavily, let alone listen to it that much. Whereas Saucerful of Secrets, if that came along with it, I would constantly listen to both those albums, mainly because they would just sound like 2 sides of the same coin almost, just 2 different sides of the same coin. Just because it's Syd Barrett's first, only 2 albums of Pink Floyd, it's transitioned into the Pink Floyd we all ended up growing to know, as opposed to the original format and everything. And again, the sounds, like I've said, and the lyrics and everything all just sound different from one another. I would definitely like to listen, I would personally, if 1968 came out and Saucer came out, like I said, it would cause me to listen to Piper more than Piper would just by itself. And Saucer, again, I could either listen to that with Piper or just by itself, probably more occasionally than not. I could definitely see myself playing this album a lot. This would definitely be, I can't really think of any good example, but I guess insert your favorite album, insert your favorite, like say you're going on a campfire, you're bringing a car, you're going hiking, and you're with your friends, and you just want to introduce them to a good album. If this was 1968, I could definitely see me do that with A Saucerful of Secrets a lot, especially as opposed to 1967 with Piper at the Gates of Dawn. But again, both are pretty good albums, just one's way more incredible than the other in my opinion. So anyway, that is my review of Pink Floyd's second studio album, Saucerful of Secrets. I guess next up would be their soundtrack More. And I guess I'll see you guys when I make that video. Thank you for sitting through this one. I'm just glad I didn't make it as long as the other one, and have a good one. Peace.